나처럼 groovy하게 나처럼 groovy하게.
Since there have been a couple issues in the K-pop world that have been gaining a lot of attention lately, I wanted to make a video breaking down my own thoughts on them. Before we get started, I do want to ask you guys to please remain respectful when making comments, since some of the issues in this video are sensitive. Also, this video is not meant to bash any of the artists being discussed today, so please don't send any hate towards them. Without further ado, let's get started. I'm literally so late to talk about this group. I didn't even know this was a thing until a week or two ago. I'll try to keep my thoughts on Kaachi brief since pretty much everyone and their mothers have discussed them already. Basically, I don't really see them as a serious K-pop group, but I also don't think the hate against them is warranted. The production quality of their song and their music video is obviously lacking, and while it's evident that they wouldn't have the same kind of funding that a group from someone like SM or YG would have, I still think that their production team could have done much better. When I watched the music video, I thought this was like another Rebecca Black situation. Remember back when Friday went viral for basically having terrible quality and then a bunch of people tried to make similar videos so that they could get their 15 seconds of fame? That's what I thought this group was trying to do, because their music just doesn't measure up to standards in any industry, whether it be K-pop or Western pop music. The members clearly don't have the kind of training needed to be able to stand out in a good way amidst the sea of other K-pop groups. I feel like this company wouldn't have debuted this group if they didn't think that Controversy was going to carry them over, because the whole thing just feels extremely amateurish. I do feel bad for the members of the group, though. They don't deserve a lot of the hate that they've gotten. A lot of stuff that they were being bashed for were just baseless rumors. They weren't trying to copy BTS, and if they were, don't you think Big Hit would have sued them? They didn't insult Jennie, they aren't under the same company that Ollie London is. I'm pretty sure that one of the members shipping herself with Jungkook was just blown out of proportion, and let's just say their fandom name isn't what everyone on Twitter says it is. Now, some people have been raising the issue of cultural appropriation, which I think is a much more valid complaint to bring up. Personally, I don't really think I have the right to determine whether this is appropriation since I'm not Korean, but I understand why people would be upset seeing a group that only has one Korean member, isn't well versed in the culture, and don't have the same experience of training, get more views and buzz than some really amazing K-pop groups who have worked their butts off for years. I think the biggest issues that come to mind with appropriation is one of the members giving herself a Korean name. But again, I don't really think it's my place to comment whether I think that was right or wrong since it's not my culture. This has also opened up a bigger debate for what exactly constitutes as K-pop. Is it solely the language that makes K-pop what it is? In that case, Kaachi would be K-pop. But would songs by K-pop groups in other languages not fall into the same category? Is the promotional periods and marketing strategies what define K-pop? In that case, Kaachi wouldn't be K-pop because they don't promote on music shows or participate in variety shows, being a UK-based group. I honestly don't know whether I count Kaachi as K-pop myself. I feel like they're in a gray area between groups like Z-Stars, who I don't consider to be K-pop since they neither sing in Korean nor promote like other K-pop groups, and between actual K-pop groups that happen to have foreign idols yet promote in the same manner as other groups and learn to get accustomed to the culture. I'm curious to see what you guys think defines K-pop, so please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Overall, I don't like Kaachi, but the hate for them definitely doesn't seem justified because so much of it is based on false claims. I know a lot of people aren't like this, but I've seen many K-pop stans on social media standing up for their faves and talking about the importance of mental health, but when it comes to Western artists, they'll rip them apart without a second thought. Mental health isn't just something that you can be selective about. Hate affects everyone, and only making excuses for K-pop idols feels extremely hypocritical. There's a difference between critiquing ability as a group versus spreading lies and sending threats. And honestly, I think a lot of people would have made the same decision that the members of this group did for the chance of fame. The offer to be made into a star is alluring, especially at that young of an age. If you don't like Kaachi, just ignore them and focus on supporting your favorite groups instead of sending them hate. Also, if you're more interested in hearing about Kaachi and the rumors surrounding them, there are 2 videos I really recommend watching, which I will link in the description box. For those of you who haven't heard, NCT's Jaehyun, Astro's Chaeunwoo, 17's Mingyu, and BTS's Jungkook are under fire after Dispatch reported them going out to Itaewon in the midst of the COVID pandemic. The reason why this area in particular is important to note is because there were a new series of cases spreading from clubs in that area after an infected patient visited them. However, all these members didn't go to any clubs, and their trips were from a week before the new cases were confirmed. I think the biggest reason why people are mad is because people who visited the vicinity were supposed to self-isolate for 2 weeks, yet some of these idols, I think it was just Eunwoo and Jaehyun, continued their promotional activities. Others also seemed mad because they weren't following social distancing, which again is a valid complaint, but it's also important to note that South Korea had been relaxing restrictions on going out, so what they did wasn't against the law or anything. I think it was definitely unwise for them to go out, especially knowing that they're constantly in the public eye. I also think it was even worse that some of them continued to follow their schedules. Even though they went before the confirmed cases, that's still a risk that they took, which could have negatively affected everyone they interacted with as part of their job. While other companies confirmed that each member tested negative for COVID, I always think it's better to be safe than sorry regarding health issues, especially considering that the best way to stop the spread of this virus is by taking preventative measures. It would have been so much worse if someone did test positive and been promoting this whole time, even though the possibility of that was minute. However, I do think that the way some fans reacted was just completely uncalled for. People were trying to cancel these members, sending them hate online, and selling their merch. Some people even made a petition for the government to take away the Order of Cultural Merit Medal Jungkook received due to this incident. Like I mentioned, I can see why people would be disappointed in some of their actions, but I don't think it's so bad that it warrants discrediting their entire careers for it. But on the flip side, I don't think it's good for fans to try to brush off the issue and baby their idols, acting like they're incapable of doing anything wrong. They're grown men and they can take responsibility for their actions. At this point, all of their agencies have issued apology statements, and Jaehyun and Eunwoo even issued their own apologies for their actions, so I don't really think that there's much more that they can do at this point. I think it's ridiculous that people were getting mad at the 2 of them for their apologies sounding similar, though. Like, it's an apology, how original can you get with it? Maybe they're mad because they think their PR teams or something are behind it, but even if they were, who cares? That's literally the job of a PR team. The one other issue that I wanted to bring up was the accusations surrounding this being brought up in the midst of both the Nth Room trials and during many of these groups' promotional periods. Some people thought Dispatch may have waited on releasing the story for a few weeks to serve as a sort of smokescreen for the ongoing Nth Room trials. It wouldn't be the first time that K-pop-related issues were used as a distractor for larger ongoing issues, but here I don't think that was really the case. Dispatch is a celebrity gossip site. They aren't going to report about issues like the Nth Room unless celebrities are involved in them. There were also people complaining that this was dropped in the midst of comebacks and special promotions, thinking that this might be some sort of sabotage, but again, I don't really think that's the case. I feel like Dispatch was just trying to wait to release this news at a time where they knew they would be able to maximize the number of people invested in hearing about the news to translate into higher profits. By waiting until both the confirmation of a resurgence of cases in the area and promotional periods where idols are under the spotlight, Dispatch was able to garner a bigger response from the public than if they simply announced it right after they gathered the information. I'm not saying that it's impossible for the other 2 to factor into the timing of the news' release, but I don't think that there's a conspiracy behind this. The bottom line, a lot of this hate was blown out of proportion, but in the future I do hope that these idols remain careful in situations like this, especially considering the almost inevitability of a second wave of infections. So I wanted to talk about these two groups together because I feel like both of them had similar underlying issues. In Oh My Girl's case, one of the members, Seunghee, was under fire for stereotyping Mexican culture as part of a segment on a show. The original video was later re-uploaded that cut that segment out, and SBS released an apology statement for any offense that may have been caused. Now, I'm not Mexican, so I don't think it's my place to say whether what they did was offensive, but I think if they had done something like that with my culture, I probably would have felt slightly hurt by it. I don't think that she had any malicious intent with her actions, but it seems a bit ignorant to reduce a culture to stereotypes for the sake of comedy. In MCND's case, a video of the group from before their debut was released where the members were singing along to a song including the N-word. I honestly don't think that they knew what the meaning of the word was, and their company has since issued an apology statement about the use of it, removing the clips and admitting ignorance. While I don't think either group had bad intentions, I do feel like ignorance is becoming less and less excusable. K-pop groups are taking on a bigger global presence than ever, and with so many acts promoting and touring internationally, the artists need to take more steps than ever to make sure that they aren't being unintentionally insensitive. I feel like K-pop companies really need to start including some sort of cultural sensitivity training during trainee periods, or at least give their artists some sort of education during the formation of groups or around the time of their debut. Oh My Girl and MCND certainly aren't the first groups to be accused of making insensitive comments, and unfortunately, they probably won't be the last. I'm sure that since Korea is a homogenous country, there's probably less awareness regarding topics like this, but again, if you choose to promote your groups internationally, you need to make sure that you can adapt to other markets, which includes being aware of cultural differences and making sure that your artists don't do things that are considered rude to those fan bases. I personally don't think either group deserves to be cancelled, since, again, I don't think their intent was to be racist, but I hope that the artists and their companies take this as an opportunity to educate themselves about other cultures to make sure instances like this don't happen in the future. As of recording this, Oh My Girl's company still hasn't released any sort of apology statement, and I really hope that they don't try to sweep this under the rug, because that just makes the members seem more ignorant. I didn't want to end this video on a heavy note, so I also want to hear what you guys think about some other stuff. Are you guys excited for Blackpink's comeback? Are you happy that they're extending their promotions? Or do you think YG has been dragging out this album for too long? Personally, I think it's a smart marketing strategy. That way they can promote their releases and gain more exposure than if they dropped everything at once. But I'm also kind of salty that YG decided to draw out the wait even more. I don't want to jinx anything, but I actually do think that YG is going to follow through on their promise of the full album this time. And a couple of you guys let me know on my last video that there are producers besides Teddy Park that have been confirmed to be working on this album, so I'm really excited to see what they release. Also, what are your thoughts on Twice's teasers for More and More? I still feel like the teasers are somehow going to end up being different from the theme of the actual music video, but I don't really know what to expect. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments.